Well, hi there. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Kite Swift Moves Trading Academy. Yeah, you can tell I've gotten some sleep. I'm sorry if some of these videos sound a little rough. I'm usually running about 4, maybe 5 hours sleep a day. I'm a busy person, but busy people get things done. So, anyhow, I wanted to talk some more. I can't believe this. I actually made this video yesterday. Made like a 25-minute video, only to find out that the microphone wasn't plugged in all the way and I had zero audio. That wasn't fun. It happens. Anyways, I wanted to go into a little more of my background, my credentials, so you know where I'm coming from. Do I consider myself to be like some, hotshot expert? Honestly, I don't think anybody really truly is. This is a game of developing skill and practicing that skill and getting consistent with it. There's a lot of people on the internet that run their mouths about how great they are and all this stuff they've done, and they always seem to have a course that they want to sell you. I'm not selling you anything. I'm offering all this information and background for free. So do with that as you will. So back around 1998, was interested in learning how to invest, as I would call it back then. And I took a course at a community college there in North Carolina. Uh, and it was a stock selection course. This old guy taught the course. He was kind of a crazy old dude, but he was very interesting, though. He, in essence, had become a millionaire twice. First time when he achieved it, his wife got sick, and the insurance company wouldn't pay to get her healthy, so he had to deplete his brokerage account to get her there. So then he turned around and did it again. So his saying back then was, "If I can do it twice, you can do it once." Um, just to show you how this guy was. He was still on dial-up when back then most people had what we call broadband, high-speed internet today, right? So, anyways, he used to get up at like 2 or 3 in the morning to do his research online because the internet was so much faster. Yeah. Anyhow, so what did he teach? He was the course taught the fundamental analysis, and so what does that mean? It was they followed the Investment Clubs of America, I believe it was called, their strategy or their process, which really meant going and doing a lot of research on the company and trying to determine if the management was good, and also to determine if the current price of the stock, was it in a buy range, was it in a hold range, or was it in a sell range? And pretty much what they taught, their methodology was buy and hold. Now, what this guy liked to do, he liked to buy. He said normally he liked, if he could, he'd like to buy 1,000 shares, or if not, he would like maybe say he'd buy 100 shares, depending how expensive it was, I guess. But he would buy a round number like that, and then he would just hold on to it. And what happens when you do that, these stocks will split periodically. They go up, they go down, and they'll split some more. And pretty soon, and every time they split, you have more shares. So his goal was either for the stock to double in value or to double in quantity. And once it did, then he would sell half of it and go reinvest that money again. But then the half that he kept, he considered that free stock, and he would just sit on it and just keep it, and it would just keep growing, keep growing. And that's how he grew his wealth. Now, things were a little different back then. Does this strategy today still work? Yeah, more or less. I mean, if you think about your 401k, that's what they're doing. They're buying and holding, and they do everything they can to convince you not to leave out of their 401k, out of those mutual funds. And why? Because those mutual fund managers, their bonuses are not paid on how the fund performs, they're paid on how much is in the fund. So that person makes his money whether he makes money for you or not. You might want to think about that one for a while. Um, and this is truly what I would call investing. Now, what was one of the key things they would do? Well, they would, all right, let me back up. So the reason they want to know about the management was because back then people tend to stay at companies like forever. And so if you had good management, if they had a bad product, he knew that the management would fix that. They would turn the things around and they would get a better product going. But he also knew if you had bad management, you could have a great product and they would just run it in the ground. So the key was you're looking for good management. And then as far as the price range of the stock, what they would do is they would look at the 52-week high low. So if you go and look at a stock at the screen for it, one of the items you can find is in the past year, what is the 52-week high low? So that'd give you a margin. Okay. Ooh, excuse me. So for easy math, let's say the 52-week high low was $25 a share, and the high was 125 a share. So roughly that margin, if you would, in between those two is $100. And I'm doing this for simple math. Now, what Investment Close of America taught was take that $100, divide it by three, and that determined your three zones. The bottom third was the buy, the middle third was the hold, the top third was the sell range. And what he said is when he really started making good money was instead of dividing it by three, you divide it by four. So the bottom fourth buy, the half in the middle was hold, and the top fourth was his sell range. And he made good money apparently doing it. But the thing was, again, people stayed at a company forever. So let's fast forward. Oh, and why did things really not take off for me then? Well, I was married to a lady who wouldn't live to a budget, so our finances were always in chaos, really. To just be honest with you. So plus we had a lot of young kids. Kind of hard to do that when you got all that going on. Fast forward, and I believe it was Bill Clinton passed a law that, because before it used to be against the law to do this, but now that they can legally do it, is that they tie the CEO's bonuses typically to the price of the stock. So that CEO gets hyper vigilant on focusing on the price of the stock, not necessarily the performance of the company. So that's something you have to be aware of, that the price of the stock truly is not indicative as to the value or the performance of the company. Most stocks on the market today are oversold, meaning their prices has greatly exceeded what they're really worth, but it's a perceived value. So, anyways, so what happened was, and this is why most people, they wonder why are my wages not keeping up with inflation? Why am I not getting big raises? Why is the company I'm working for not coming out with new products? Well, if you're Mr. CEO, you got a choice. You can take that company's profit from that year and pour it back into research and development, pour it into high wages to retain good people and get the company performing well, or you can do things to manipulate the price of your stock so that your stock prices are up, and now your bonus is up, and everybody appears to be all fat, dumb, and happy except for corporate America and all the worker bees, unless you're one of the ones investing. So I suggest you learn how to trade and invest. So anyhow, also, back in those days, the online brokerages, they charged per trade. So picture this. First time I went to do this, I put like $300 in an account. Thought, ooh, that's a lot of money. And then discovered, oh, it costs $4.95 to place a trade. That's to get in it. And then it costs $4.95 to place a trade to get out of it. So roughly, let's say $5 and $5, it costs you $10. Well, if you buy a stock, that means you got to wait for that stock to go up. Whatever quantity you had to increase by at least $10, and that was just to break even. So when you don't have a whole lot of money like that, it's hard to make money in stocks. You can do it, but it's hard, and it takes a long time. So I got out of it for a while. Long story short, I ended up getting divorced. Um, and ended up moving back to Florida around that time frame. So now I'm able to control my finances better. I'm starting to turn things around financially for myself. And I also started attending at Eckerd College. Now, in between all this, I'm reading books, I'm checking out YouTube videos, and I have friends who are investors and traders. So I was, I would gather and glean every little nugget I could, trying to increase my knowledge. So then I started attending Eckerd College for business administration, and one of the courses I took was an investment finance course, and it was taught by a really brilliant man who was one of co-founders of Citizens Insurance Company, if I recall correctly. Anyways, very brilliant guy, but he started showing us how to analyze a company by simply looking at the current chart. And now he was still of the mindset of, I would still say, well, what we call today swing trade. All right, difference between swing trade and a day trade. If you buy a stock today and you turn around and sell it within that same trading day, that's a day trade. If you buy it today and you sell it any other day other than today, that would be a swing trade. And then some people say, well, that's a swing trades like maybe within a couple of weeks to a couple of months. Or if you're an investor, then you're holding it for months and years, whatever. To me, you're either day trading or swing trading. So anyhow, long story short on this, he showed us the charts, he showed us the indicators and all these different tools that we can use to help us to determine what we believe the stock is doing. And here's the crazy part. You get detached away from what the company is. And when you can really get your mind wrapped around the fact that the stock price and the money you can make off it really has nothing to do with what the company is doing. I mean, if it's in the news, yeah, it jacks the price up. When they're not in the news, whatever. But in reality, like I said, most of these stocks today are overpriced. That's why everybody's worried about a big crash. Well, I've been hearing about a big crash for, I think, the last 10, 15 years. Um, do with that as you will. So so the point I'm trying to get at is there's been times where I have bought stock and within a day or sometimes a swing trade, a couple of days, I've turned around, sold it, and I've made good money doing that. And if you ask me, what does that company do? I have no idea. I had no idea, and I didn't care. All I knew is I invested my money either short term or a little longer short term, and I made money. And so that's how you make money in the stock market. Okay, the old expression "buy low, sell high," and that's what you're trying to do. Now, if you get to where you like, say you're exposing yourself, meaning that's how much you've placed into the market. Say you buy $10,000 of say Delta Airlines, right? Well, that's more than a couple of shares. So if you have 1,000 shares of something and it goes up $5 and you turn around and sell it, you just made some really good money. At least good money in my book. Anytime you walk away with a profit, to me, that's good money. So anyhow, but again, it takes a lot of money to be able to do that. And then while you're in that trade, your money's tied up. So it's kind of hard you can't make more money. So from there, I would say it's only been, I don't know, about 8 weeks, but it's been an intense 8 weeks for me. I've spent a tremendous amount of time studying every bit of materials that I can get my hands on, attending courses, buying people's training. And what I've been doing is I've been learning about options and why am I interested in options, and why is this now part of my background? Because you can buy a contract. A contract is for 100 shares. Now you're not buying 100 shares, but it's like you're controlling 100 shares. And the reason it's so attractive is you can do that. It costs you pennies on the dollar. So say let's say Nvidia is selling for, I don't know, say $500 SPY. Say it's selling for $500 a share. I can buy a contract. Now they list the contracts per share within the contract. Is weird, but it is just is what it is. So if I look at a contract and it's $5.50. What that means is what I am investing into that contract is $550. You have to multiply it by 100 because each contract has 100 shares. So I buy a contract for $550, and as that stock price goes up, if it's a call contract, then the value of the contract goes up. If I buy a put contract, that means I think the stock's going to go down. And so if I buy a put contract and the value of that stock goes down, the value of the contract goes up. and I can make a profit. So you can make a profit going either way. Can you do the same thing with stock? Yeah, but it costs you a lot more than like the 500 some dollars. So and that's the big difference is you're leveraging is what you're doing. And so yeah, so with that, and then so what you're doing is you're structuring a trade where you're making say a couple $100 per contract. So then you go, well, how can you make thousands when you buy more contracts? So like right now, I'm typically trading 10 contracts at a time, and yeah, you can buy something and within minutes, you've made $1,000, $1,500, $2,000. You turn around and get out. Now, if you can make that money that fast, you can lose that much money that fast. So you gotta be smart and wise about it. But anyways, back to my credentials. So, what's the difference maybe between myself and yourself? This whole academy thing is set up for people who want to learn how to trade and they've never done it before, or they know very little, or maybe they think they know something but they're not sure. Whatever. This is to basically help expedite you from being at that point to where I'm at, to where you can comfortably and confidently trade for yourself, and you don't have to go through a broker. You go through a brokerage. That's where you place your trades, and you either win or lose money, but you don't have to go to a broker to do so. And now, should you still invest? Yeah, I think you should. Just to diversify yourself. I wouldn't think about necessarily mutual funds, but I would look at the ETFs. That's an electronically traded fund, and that's where it behaves like a mutual fund, meaning it's a collection of other stocks, but it trades like a stock. Where a mutual fund, you're getting into it at the end of the day, end of the trading day, or you're getting out of it at the end of the trading day. But you can't do either of those during the trading day, because they have to, at the end of the day, they recalculate based on how many shares of what they own to determine how much value is in that fund, and then they divide it by the number of shares that the fund has exposed itself to, you, the investors, and that's how they determine how much your mutual fund is worth. In a nutshell, well, you can do that electronically with a computer, or you can have somebody manage it. If you do it with a computer, it's cheaper, and also you can then therefore then trade it like you would a stock. That's an ETF. And there's, for example, SPY is an index fund that's based on the S&P 500, the top 500 companies in the country. You got the QQQ, that's a composite index of the tech stocks. So it just depends on what you want to be in and where you want to make your money. But you can just buy and hold those like you would your mutual fund, um, and then that's one way to invest. Okay. Another way is you could focus on stocks that pay dividends, and that's another video we'll get into more in detail later on too. So you can just buy stocks and hold them that pay dividends, and that's your strategy. Is you're a dividend investor, as they call it. Now, if you want, you can exploit that more. And what I mean by that, well, these contracts I buy, when I buy an option contract, I'm doing just that. I'm buying the contract. Well, that contract doesn't come out of thin air. So say you're sitting on 1,000 shares of SPY, and you want to sell contracts, you could sell 10 contracts. And why would you want to do that? Well, when I buy that contract and I pay that premium for that contract, that 550 or whatever the cost is, the person who's selling that contract gets that contract, gets that money. What they're hoping is that you're just trading the value of the contract. And at the end of when the contract expires, and they all have an expiration date, they're hoping that it's going to expire worthless and it just disappears. And why do they want that? Because they don't want to lose their shares. Now, if somebody wanted to, they could exercise that contract, and you'd have to sell those shares to them for whatever that contract that you sold. But in this day and age, most people, they want to buy shares, they just go buy them. If people are like me looking to day trade and make good money, we buy contracts, but we don't take them to the expiration date, and the contract typically will expire worthless and it goes away. So if you combined those two strategies together, you would make the dividend off the stock, and then you would also then get premiums. And so a lot of these contracts, you can determine how long of a contract you want to do. Let's say you do it weekly, so every week you could be making additional money off those shares that you're holding while you're still holding them. And there's some risk. Okay, there's a risk you might have to sell your shares, but that's about it. Anyways, getting away from the subject matter here. So that's pretty much my background. I've done a lot of trading now on my own, um, and and I'm at a position now where I'm really just getting super hyper focused on it because this is how I want to help. I want to augment my retirement income that I have coming in. Um, and literally think I can double and triple my retirement income amount by doing basic day trading with the options. Can you do the same thing? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but anyhow, think about it. But that just gives you an idea of my background. I hope this has been helpful to you or entertaining. I don't know. Hope you have a great day. Bye now.